This is the video for Friday, July the 30th, 2021. We're going to just look at the indices today, Apple and SAVA, Casanova Biosciences, which is a stock that I talked about for the first time back on April the 8th. And I still think there's a lot has been happening with that stock in the last May, June, July, 3.5 months. But there was a significant event that happened Thursday that I'm going to talk about. And I think we've got a great opportunity to repeat the success with this stock. But first we're going to look at the Mcclellan Oscillator, which has had trouble with the neutral line ever since way back here in June. It's just been sort of a summer of discontent for the Mcclellan Oscillator, although the S&P has been making new highs, little new highs, but look what it's primarily been doing. It's just been moving in this channel of high, low, nearing the high, testing that low again, coming up, making barely a new high and then pulling back. So we've had a summer of channeling, and the Mcclellan Oscillator has been telling us that we're churning, that we're having trouble. But the other thing that we've been looking at is the summation index. And we've seen the summation index since when? Since I really don't have a good x-axis here, but we've seen it while the market has been in a steady uptrend. The Mcclellan summation index has been moving down and then just hit a bottom on Thursday and stayed pretty much flat on the Friday. But is this a turnaround in the summation index? Remember, the summation index is supposed to tell us what's going to happen 3 to 6 months out, and it does really call for some bad news. So let's just look now at our Dow Jones Index. You can see channeling here, just like we saw in the S&P. The S&P came up, made this new high, and then is channeled for the last 7 trading days in a row. The NASDAQ pulling back from its record high. Everything still looks bullish, but look at the volatility index. Took a bit of a spike on Friday, and then it pulled back to finish the day just above its 50-day moving average, still in what we call that neutral dormant area. Apple, after earnings, which it had a pretty disappointing pullback, but a good one. What I did is I came in with some October call spreads. I took the 145, 155, took 5 of those contracts for about $3 and something. And I think that it's just a good stock to have, and I think that they're going to have a bang quarter that ends in September with the release of the iPhone 13. But now we're going to look at SAVA, the stock that we first talked about on April the 8th. Let's just put this away. Let's look at SAVA. First of all, is this a stock that is technically traded? Are people really looking at this and trading it based off of its potential success as a drug? Or is this being traded with technicals? Well, let's just look at the Woody's pivots on a 15-minute basis. Let's go back to the 1st of July. Let's not go back that far. Let's just take July the 9th. And let's see, let's get rid of, let's put in all the Woody's pivot points. And let's get rid of the time frame here, the first 15-minute time frame. And let's look back here on July, well, we moved forward. Let's look back here, July the 8th. Resistance 3 played a point. On this day, maybe not so much. This day, not so much. This day, yeah, sort of. I mean, resistance 1. On this day, resistance 1, support 1, support 2, not so much. Support 1. Let's look at a big moving trending day where you could see resistance at the end of the day at resistance 2. Then this day opened up at resistance 1, pretty much peaked at resistance 4. This day, not so much. Let's look at another big day. This day here, July the 27th. Their big announcement was July the 29th, where they talked about 9 months of data on 50 patients in their phase 2B clinical trial. Google it, research about it, look at their website. I think it's casanovascience.com. Look at this. The day before, S1 finished off just below R1. Next day, which was the day before the big announcement, really just stayed around R2. And then came the big announcement, and although the data was good, it was a case of buy the rumor, sell the news. And we're going to look at how people have been buying the rumor for the last few months since we started looking at it in April. But we had this massive drop down, and then we had it come up. Let's take the Ichimoku out of there. And then we had it come up to the support 1, down to support 3, and then finish the day with a bit more selling. Now on Friday, we saw a rally back, but the Woody's pivots didn't really necessarily play a big part. Let's look at the daily chart. And we're going to take a Fibonacci that starts from September the 15th, when the stock was, I guess the stock was traded long before that. But we've just decided to take that as a baseline because that's where it really started to move up. If we go back in time, we can see SAVA actually did some things in 1920. Very news-driven, obviously. But look at this Fibonacci. Then we had some news-driven news here. This was their 6-month, was it their 6-month data? Don't know. Anyways, not important. 50 moving average, sort of coming into play, not so much. 50 moving average here. But look where we had this peak right here, and we drew that as the top of our Fibonacci. Saw a pull back to the 50. Then a bounce to the 138.2 to finish with 2 days of pullback down to perfectly at 61.8. So we have a good set of Fibonacci's. We should have reasonable support right back here on the 200. If it's really going to be shorted to drive people out of the stock before the next wave of news comes up, it has a really good chance of going down to 50. And if it gets support down here for a couple of days, I think you should really load up on the stock and put in a $5 stop and then get out if it goes to 45.24. I mean, that is another support point, but I would, if it failed that point, I would get out. And then if I thought about getting back in again, it would be once it got back up over the 200 moving average, with a little bit of buying maybe at 38.2. But on April the 8th, when we first started talking about that, this is where the stock was right here. And then it just sort of trended along. Remember, I was into this other Alzheimer's stock, ALEC, which has gone from $19 to $33 and is still sort of keeping that high. And then I got rid of it because it wasn't moving fast enough, didn't see any news coming, and then focused on this one on a tip from a friend of mine. This friend of mine made $3 million profit on this stock. I was a little handcuffed on it because I decided I was going to play it because I don't like pharmaceutical stocks. I don't like the fact that they're pumped and dumped and they're buy the rumor, sell the news. So I've just never played biotech stocks, pharmaceutical stocks, unless they paid a dividend, which biotech stocks don't do. So I was buying vertical calls. And I was doing pretty well, and then the stock took this drop here, and then I got out. It got saved by the 50, and that's when I started to buy the stock again. But I started putting in short calls. And I put in a short 90 call, and I put in a short 125 call. So when it was right up here, I thought, I'm not comfortable with this news coming out next week. And I'm going to put a 125 call, which had tremendous volatility on it, 140% volatility. So I was able to sell that 125 call for almost $20, $18, $20. So my break-even point would have been 145, and I could have taken my 700 shares, averaging about $90 cost, sold them at 140, the equivalent of 140, been very happy. But I didn't. I covered them, so I wasn't able to get out. So when the stock dropped quickly, I wasn't able to get out until the stock had dropped sufficiently so that my 125 short call was making money. And then when it dropped below 90 and then substantially below 90, that short call, which was really a loser for me because now I had stock that I had bought at 90, sold the 90 call for about $15. 105 would have been my break even. The stock is at 130, 140. Well, my friend is selling here because he's not encumbered by the short calls. Do I feel bad about being encumbered by the short calls? No, because that's my strategy. I buy stock, sell the calls to get a better cost on the stock, and I look at making money on the movement of the short calls. And it's really always worked well for me. Well, this week it worked fantastically. Made about $9,000 of profit when I got out of my 125 calls. And remember, I only had 7 of them, 2 of the 125s and 5 of the 90s. Out of all my calls, now I have 700 shares. I added 200 more shares, brought my average cost down into the low 80s. And I'm really impressed by getting the support at 61.8. As this stock rallies up higher, and I think it will, take a look at Seeking Alpha. There's one guy that's been writing about this stock for a long time. Now remember, this is not the best source, Seeking Alpha, but he will tell you about what the plain facts on the drug are. Where you take those facts and what presumptions you want to make is up to you. But I really think that this is a stock that has the ability, once, in September when it comes out with 1-year data, it could be pretty powerful. On Thursday, they reported the only significant data with Alzheimer's patients to show improvement in dementia or cognitive ability after 9 months. No other drug, and remember, Avodart came out 17 years ago, and that's the most commonly prescribed drug. Biogen's drug is intravenous. You got to take it every 4 weeks, and it's bloody expensive. This is a small molecule. It's not going to be cheap, but it's not going to be the cost of a drug that has to be infused intravenously. You'll take it at home as a pill. Biogen's drug has not shown any success beyond 60 days and almost didn't get FDA approval. This is a pretty exciting drug. Research it. I hope the technicals are helpful to you. I love the stock. I don't think I'm going to be covering my calls unless I see short-term opportunities, and I'll let you know what those are.